All right, everybody, welcome back to the Golf Podcast presented by Golficity. This is episode number 246. It's Thanksgiving week when this episode is dropping. On behalf of Mike, myself, everyone at Golficity, I want to wish everybody a very happy holiday Thanksgiving week. We talk about, giving thanks. We're always thankful for all the great stuff that this endeavor has brought for us. We appreciate each and every one of you who tune in every single week. In fact, Mike, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday of the year.
Mine too, man.
You too.
I always say that. Love
nice.
it.
At least I share that with somebody, because whenever I tell people that, they're like, come on. They like everything.
Man.
I'm a Thanksgiving guy. I love it. It's my favorite thing. You get the meal, no craziness with shopping or anything.
Right.
2 days off from work every year. Plus it falls right around my birthday.
That's right,
I'm
man.
a happy man every time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you, man. It's number one for me.
It's great stuff. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about short game, which I think it's a really great topic, because if anybody had a chance to watch, which just came out a couple days ago, our lesson, our recent, high tech lesson that we took, that vlog with Kevin Sprecher, you just kind of get an idea sometimes of how some of these coaches think. And I thought it was very interesting when he told you, Mike, you were saying how come sometimes, I play so much better than others, or at least my score translates so much better. And the first question he asked is like, how was your short game that day?
Right.
It's just that important. You start to realize how important it is. But I want to get into that. But first, let's do our stats segment, one of my favorite parts of the conversation every week.
Yeah, dude, I'm loving this segment, by the way. So let's do it. Let's dive into it. This segment's brought to you by ShotScope. The ShotScope V2 is the only GPS watch on the market that combines GPS distances to greens and hazards and automatic performance tracking. I mean, essentially, it's a GPS watch, automatic performance tracking, all in one watch. You wear the V2 just like a watch, and you play your game like normal. This thing is super light. It charges pretty quick. It holds a charge. And all that magic, Frank, that we always talk about with the stats, it just happens right there in the background. You don't need the phone at all. That's the beauty of it. I love how your performance is being tracked. It provides you with hundreds of stats, and it really does help you improve your game. They have over 40,000 courses worldwide. The technology is great. I mean, we talk about this a lot because we are going to be doing a lot of fun things with ShotScope throughout the next year. And, right now, I mean, you can get a super, super deal on this thing. So get this. Right now, $60 off. This thing, Frank, it's sub $200. It's nuts.
I know.
Yeah, right. Visit shotscope.com/Golficity or use the code Golficity right at checkout. That's right. The V2 watch and stat tracker all in one. This thing is legit. It's under $200. Check it out. Thanksgiving week, it's not going to last long, so don't miss out on it.
No doubt about it. And I tell you what, Mike, because our leaderboard is growing so quickly, there's quite a few people who are hopping in there. Let's highlight some of our leaders. The leaderboard, this just adds that other element of friendly competition. I love it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So let's see what we've got here. So if you're new to ShotScope, and I know we didn't talk too much about this, we've been chatting about it a little bit in the Facebook group, but the new feature is leaderboards. So they have worldwide leaderboards, national leaderboards, and then we've got some specific ones. So Golficity has our own leaderboard. It's a great way for you to compete against other Golficity listeners. You can join that very easily. You just type code GICITY, which I'll also put in the show notes. You can put that in and you can just join for free. If you've got the ShotScope program, you're in. But let's take a look at putts per round on the Golficity leaderboard. There I am. I see myself T7th with 32 average per round, and there you are at T10 with 33. So one
right there.
stroke, and I've got you just a little bit there, Mike.
Yeah, it's funny. It's great to see that, first of all, because now that's a personal goal for me. This time next year, I want to see a 2 handle on that number. I want to be in the 20s. For me, that's a big difference in my game. I mean, for all of us, it is. I mean, that and greens in regulation. So speaking of greens in regulation, there I'm T17th at 22% success. I mean, so those are my big areas of focus this off season. That short stick, really working on target practice, even if it's starting at 10 feet, 10 yards, 20 yards, 20 feet, whatever it is, short. I'm just going to work on target practice. That's it.
And it gives you, like I said, it gives you that fun incentive. We've had a little bit of fun already with it, a little bragging rights in the Facebook group. I know a lot more people are hopping in at this price. Dude, $189. I mean, this is like no brainer buy of the year. I know we always on Golficity, we always do our Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal roundup. I think this is easily my favorite deal of the year because I was looking around. If you're just in the market for just a GPS watch,
it's cheaper than that.
yeah, most of these GPS watches who don't do the stat tracking are more. And this is, I would say it's easily my favorite just GPS watch. Forget the stats. Then you add that in. That's like the icing on the cake. So grab it while you can. Go to shotscope.com/Golficity. And if you do hop in, make sure you use that code GICITY and you'll get on our leaderboard. We get to see a little bit of friendly competition. And as we said, as this rolls on very soon, we're going to be doing some prizes for that leaderboard. So good stuff. All right. Before we talk about the short game, let's recap a couple more things around Golficity. The one big one I want to talk about was our recent vlog, which just dropped the other day, where we had the chance to go back to Sleepy Hollow and work again with Kevin Sprecher. On this time working more on our swing. So the way this kind of came about, it's kind of an interesting little backstory. We played and hopefully you guys had a chance to see the video after the fitting. It all started with the fitting. That's when we first met Kevin, when we did our full bag Titleist fitting, because he's a Titleist fitter there at the regional Titleist fitting center at Sleepy Hollow. And then he invited us back to play with him for a playing lesson, which we had to hop on, of course, because that's something I've always wanted to do. We learned a ton while we were out there. We vlogged the whole thing so you guys could come along for the ride. But then shortly after, we were just kind of texting with Kevin and saying, thanks again. We appreciate all the insight and we learned a lot. And he just kind of like dropped this thing that just like, whet the appetite a little bit, where he goes, we need to get you guys in for a swing lesson. With a little work, you could be really good. And anytime you hear somebody, especially somebody you respect, in the game say that, you're like, yeah, I'm all about it. So we just said where, when, how, we're there.
Right.
And it worked out really well because there was the other side of it, the technology piece that we really wanted to find out more about. And we talked about this a lot in the last episode where we kind of decompressed it. So if you want, go back and listen to episode 245 where we talk about it in depth. But I think it really, for me, uncovered a lot of how the correct way that technology can be used to help you improve your game. Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it was wild. I mean, to see everything. I mean, I loved going through it, and now I'm even more excited to watch it back and again and again. And I watched that video a few times since, because, it's like I'm getting a lesson again and again, bro.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean?
And I said this the last time, and I'll say it again. I encourage everyone, even if you're not like us, or if you're, doing something on YouTube, whatever, even if it's just for yourself, record your lesson. I know a lot of times these, the pros will send you, and you'll see, we even worked it into the video where we had some of the lesson outputs where they talk over the video of you swinging. But that's only sometimes just a piece. I mean, you've got your phone in your pocket. Just let it run. Let it record. I find that there's so much you're learning so fast. You don't want to forget that. And just having that record of being able to go back and rewatch it, I love it. Plus, even with the tech piece where we're seeing ourselves on like the Swing Cat and the K-Vest, and we're able to rewatch that, and you're watching your swing in a whole new dynamic.
Yeah.
So I've been like you. I've been kind of rewatching it. So you guys will see that when it comes out. But I feel like we completed like that trifecta where we've done a little bit of everything, with Kevin, but there's one more thing we may do.
We got to do the
work
putter.
on the putting. We're going back and work on the putting. But anyway, so that was really great stuff. Hope you guys get a chance to catch the video. Speaking of videos, we also have our vessel bag giveaway that's still out there as of when this podcast comes out. I think we're going to be running that through December 12th, I believe it is.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Giving away a killer vessel Sunday bag. You can see my bag right there in the background if you're watching this on YouTube. And I love this thing. We've been getting tons of great compliments on YouTube. Appreciate every one of those. This thing's just been great. So I'm just working on getting it out of the house and back on the course.
Yeah, seriously. Now, do you plan on putting anything else in that office right now? Because I see your bag and the putt out mat, and that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You got the putt out. Yeah.
You clearly moved into your new home. I get that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that look alone right there is pretty clean.
I tell you what, I tweeted it out when I first got it, and I was like, literally the first thing I moved into my office was the putt out, because we talked about how much I've been focusing on my short game. So it's just great to be able to come in here and just zone in and work on my putting for a little while. But, yeah, so that's been great, but I've got a desk, obviously, but I'm working on unloading this thing up a little bit. Speaking of which, one other thing I wanted to mention about the lesson, because I've been working on this all week. So we talked about in that lesson that we took, we talked about kind of like simulating the motion and learning the motion. And there was something that was just so enlightening to me. It just kind of clicked. I was trying to go back and think about what Kevin had said about relating golf to other sports. Because I thought if there's something I can relate to that I've done since I was a kid that just is so natural to me, maybe it will make it click and be able to do it more with my golf game. And the one thing I was struggling with, and he noticed, was that I need to get my weight starting to shift back forward I'm a righty, towards my left leg before I could finish my backswing. So what I was doing is I was completely finishing my backswing, getting to the top, and then triggering my weight shift. He wants me to start that weight shift happening as the club is still going up. So I'm like, what can I relate this to? And then I thought about baseball. You and I used to always play baseball, growing up, younger, whatever. And I thought about just like, without thinking about it, I just started like, simulating like I was going to make a throw. And then I realized that's exactly what I'm doing with my weight shift. As my arm is coming back, I'm already moving forward. I'm already shifting my foot. So I'm like, if I can create that same feel, right? Sometimes it just takes a different visualization or a different way of mind sending the body signals to be able to actually make it click and happen. And since then, it's been easy to practice, and I'm starting to feel it, and it's feeling more and more natural. Something that felt completely unnatural when I first did it is feeling more and more natural because I feel that. And now I don't know what it would be like to do it the other way in baseball. Can you imagine not shifting your weight forward until the ball was as far back as it's going to go? You look like a caricature. You like all the way back and then throw. It wouldn't happen. So as that arm is coming up, as you're doing like this motion where it's coming up, you're already shifting forward. So it was an interesting visualization for me. It's really helped me on that. And it's also kind of opened my eyes to yet another way that we can practice in the off season, because I feel like I am getting a lot of really good work done on my swing without even a club in my hands. Right. I've been doing his tip of 5 minutes, 5 minutes 3 times a day. 15 total minutes where I just break what I'm doing. Sometimes at work, whatever, people probably look at me like, what is this guy doing? But I'm just like doing this, like that motion over and over, the swing, and it's working for me. It's helping. Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm like he told me, I'm standing in front of a large mirror and I'm just trying to work on my issue, which is not swaying back. Remember, he stood as me as a righty. He stood on my left side and he made me physically with my hip bump his hip. I'm on the pullback, which is shifting my weight forward, allowing me to eventually rotate more is what I'm working on. And one of my big takeaways was he goes, Mike, I mean, yeah, it's clear that you're a strong guy, but you just aren't flexible. And that was so eye-opening for him. Like, wow. So, I really hit the gym 6 days a week. So you could think, hey, I'm flexible. Right, but I'm really not. And he was telling me about, how I should stretch and things. So all around, superb. And like I said before, I love going back and watching it over and over again. Yeah, it's good stuff. But anyway, so speaking of switching indoors, I just wanted to tell you about this. Getting to be, it's already winter here. We got our first snowstorm in the Northeast. Yep. Even if you're not in the Northeast, you probably heard about it because it made news because it just was so much bigger than a lot of people expected it to be. But anyway, my normal commute home, right? and it's kind of a funny story. Mike's laughing because he was calling me a couple times while we were just talking about, stuff for the week for Golficity. But he's like, you're still in the car? So my normal commute home from the office is 20-minute drive, 20 minutes. I left a little early when it started snowing because I wanted to get home and whatever, make sure I got the kids all set up. It took me 7 hours to get home. 7 Dude, that's horrible, man. Hours. I left at 4:15. I left 45 minutes early and I got home at 11:15 at night. There was the one road that I have to take to get there, that once you're on that road, there's no turning off. It's a 2-lane road. There were 2 separate accidents where tractor trailers slid across the road and completely blocked both lanes. And they had to get the big haulers, the big tow trucks in to tow them out. So, I mean, this thing was like, after I waited 4 hours in park in one spot for them to clear the first accident. 4 hours. 4 hours. And then you start moving and you're like, oh, I'm good. I even immediately stopped for gas, the first gas station, because I almost ran out of gas sitting there waiting for 4 hours. And then all of a sudden traffic stopped again. And I'm like, what is this? 3 more hours for another tractor trailer. So it was so hello winter. Welcome back.
Yeah.
I missed you.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, seriously.
I tell you what, it's like between not playing golf and then having to deal with that.
Yeah, that's brutal, man.
Not my bag, man.
You're one of the many that I know that has happened to that evening. Both New York and New Jersey is just like you said. Nobody planned for this to be as bad as it was.
Well, there were kids in the city that were stuck on school buses for 12 hours in Manhattan.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, it just weren't prepared for it.
I was saved, a blessing. I was saved by kindergarten early dismissal. I left work early to go pick up, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just go home. And then I got home and I said, there's no storm coming. I'm safe. I'm in the clear. That was so pointless. Yeah. And then all of a sudden all that happened. So I feel for you, dude. But, hopefully, hopefully it doesn't happen again, because that's rough.
Yeah, it was rough. But anyway, that's going to be hopefully my last winter rant until we get through it. Anyway, one other thing I want to mention, Charles Howell III's win.
Chucky 3 sticks.
Did you see that?
I
love seeing him back on top, but how crazy is this? Again, we see another equipment switch.
Yeah, right. Go figure.
And then a win. The other thing that we saw come out of the gate like that was the TS driver, right? Which we saw a couple wins right off
Michael
out
Kim,
of the gate.
I believe.
Yep. And then now the new, which you and I tested a little bit, when it was a prototype, and I guess technically it still is because it hasn't been on the shelves yet, but the new Pro V1.
Yep.
So he switched back to Titleist full bag and,
from PXG.
Yep. And then he had the Pro V1, the brand new one, and he goes out there and wins.
What happened to Bubba too when he switched from that Volvic ball? Probably went for the money and then said, you know what, I need that Pro V back, and he came back and he won. So it's interesting.
It really is. It is.
Yeah. But hey, speaking of Titleist, I want to talk about Titleist because this episode is sponsored by Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. So dude, how stoked are you to kick off the new season? I mean, I'm stoked more than ever with this TS driver. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've played 5 rounds probably about that. Dramatically changed my game. We talk about it a lot, but it really has. I mean, keeping more of my misses in play, Frank. Longer distance off the tee, which is leaving me more wedges in as opposed to mid irons, which is huge. That's going to help you score. It's going to help you with greens. And I think it's going to be key, in booming that greens and regulation percentage that I was talking about earlier. That 22%. So the TS driver is definitely getting the ball off the tee much longer, and I'm making more fairways or just that right cut rough with my misses. It's been epic right now, and I just can't wait. I'm super excited for April to come.
The same here. Well, we don't even have to wait till April because we're going to be playing 5-6 rounds in Orlando.
Are you right? Yep.
Yeah. So that's going to be fun. And if you're in the new market this off season or the holiday season for a new driver, which who isn't, the holidays roll around. It makes all of our list. Make sure that you work the TS in too. I know there's a lot of great drivers out there. But if you overlook this, it is going to be to your detriment. You have to hit it. You just see some of the numbers that this thing is generating. You saw it with Mike and my fitting. Titleist, they worked on everything with this, the thin face technology. They got the TS2 and the TS3, so you can have a little bit of something that fits for everyone. I love the stock shaft options that they have. Soup to nuts. The way they overhauled this club and what they've done with it, it's one of those, you got to hit it to believe it. So get out there, give it a try. It's given me much faster ball speed. And like you said, Mike, the forgiveness we talk about when we run through the stats segment, I'm getting that too. So visit Titleist.com to learn more about the TS line, and those 4 stock shafts. They're just awesome. You'll be impressed. We promised. And I'm telling you, you're going to kick yourself if you go out and buy something else. You didn't give this a go, because you got to see, what they're doing with this club. It's an amazing leap forward that they've done there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. So what do you say we talk a little bit about short game?
Yeah, let's do it, man. So
as you progress in this game more and more, like us, what we're doing, we talk about this all the time. We are, we're not pros. We're guys who are hacking our way through learning the game and enjoying that process. And as a big part of that, and the more and more pros that we work with, from instructional pieces or people we bring on the show to speak with, the more I see how really important the short game is, which is kind of that funny thing that happens where it gets overlooked a little bit too much by your beginner golfers. I think some of the smartest new golfers I've talked to who are just learning the game and kind of get the concept right out the gate, a lot of them say they work away from the hole. So they start by learning the closest shots like putting, chipping, pitching, and then they slowly work up to hitting some other shots rather than first thing you do is you go buy a driver and head to the driving range. So I think that as you learn that, you'll start to see, and as you do things like what we do where we try to dive deep into our stats and find out where the areas are we need improvement. If you're using a stat tracker, or even if you're tracking your stats manually, the more stats you have, the better, which is why I'm a fan of not doing it manually because it's kind of limiting as how much you can track. But whatever it is, as long as you're getting out there and you're tracking your stats, I'm happy about it because you're going to start to see this correlation between the days you score well and the days that your short game is on. So I can't drive the point home enough that how important it really is. So what we want to do, and we've talked about the short game in a lot of different ways before, we've talked about it a lot of different times, and we dove into some different granular areas. But I want to talk about just 3 things tonight. I want to if we can wrap our mind around just these 3 things, you're going to find that it really helps you. It's just 3 simple concepts that we're working on that can really help you with your game. And what I like about this is there's nothing here that's going to be too dramatic in changing anything with your swing or your actual execution. A lot of this is just based upon playing and attacking it a little smarter. We talk about strategy and execution. This is going to be a little heavier on strategy, maybe like 90-10 or 80-20 with execution. So diving right into the first thing, it's about thinking more through your shorter shots to get yourself into the right position. I think the difference between an experienced golfer and a beginner golfer is this. An experienced golfer it's a lot like when you play pool, billiards, whatever you want to call it. A really good player is going to think ahead of where that ball is going to end up and what it sets them up for on the next shot. A newer player is just going to pick a target and fire. And that's what I see is that target often just becomes the flag. It just seems like no matter where that pin is positioned, and there's a reason why course designers have the ability to move pin positions and things like that, is to challenge different areas of your game. But if you're just mindlessly going out there and the only real determining factor for you is yardage, and your target is always just that flag and that yardage, you're shortchanging yourself. There's a little bit more strategy that comes into play. When you start to think a little bit more like how some of your better golfers think, you'll become a better golfer yourself. And there's 2 big parts of that. The first one, and you've heard us probably talk about this here on the show before, is avoiding the short side. And for anybody who hasn't heard us talk about this, the short side, by definition, it's the side of the green which contains the hole on any given day. So if you miss the green on that side, you're short-sided. So let's say you're facing right at the green and the pin is on the right. If you miss on the right side, you're on the short side. So the problem with leaving your ball on the short side is that you're not going to give yourself as much room to work with when chipping or pitching. So it means it's going to be a much tougher shot. You're going to have to stop that ball quick enough to leave it close to the hole, or you're going to face a long putt coming back. And it's particularly important when you're playing firm greens. You want to steer clear of that short side. Example, let's say there's a bunker on the short side. The pin's on the right, bunker on the right, and you miss right and go in that bunker. It is a much harder up and down from that bunker than if you were to miss on the other side bunker, because of the fact that now you've got to get that ball out of the bunker up and stop it in a much shorter spot.
That reminds me of your 5 and dime hole shot.
Yes.
Yes.
A shot that's going to give me a nightmare forever.
Yep.
And I want to, as we approach the end of the year, I think we're going to do like a recap of our best and worst of 2018. That is solidly on the worst list.
That's got to be up there. Oh yeah.
But that was the thing. I made the mistake of the way I came at that green left me the thinnest possible section of green to hit. So the target was small. So even though I hit the green, it bounced into that bunker right there. But once I was in it, it's such a dramatic short side on that 5 and dime.
Yeah.
That's where, the caddy comes up to me. He's like, dude, there's nothing you can do. He's like, you have to just land it in the rough and hope it trickles onto the green. But the rough was like 5 inches deep that day.
Right.
So I hit it out of the bunker.
You did exactly what you needed to do. It
landed in the rough and it's stuck there like Velcro. So now I had a second short side shot chip.
Yep.
And what happened? It rolled all the way past the hole and I left myself a long putt coming back.
Right.
So no doubt it happens to all of us. Probably happens to you and I a lot more than most, but it happens. And I think this is where, again, if you can start to think out that strategy, you'll start to, and my strategy on that hole, if you really want to dissect it, it went awry from the tee box.
Oh, sure.
Because our mouths were watering at that very short, and we don't get a lot of chances at that hole. So at such a short par 4, what did it play to? Like
292.
292. Okay. So we're like, let's go driver, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just get that one chance of driving this green. In hindsight, I would have laid up in the fairway, because then a couple days later when we were at the Northern Trust and watching the pros do it, who can reach that green, a lot of them did still lay up in front. And then that gave them a much bigger target, because again, they're thinking more strategically. But I missed that right. When I missed that my drive went a little bit right and I missed that green right, even though it was only 30 yards from the green. Mm-hmm. My target was infinitesimally smaller because I was coming at it from the side.
Yeah, you were not in the right position for sure.
That's where it's just like, and that's what we talk about, like compounding issues and things stacking up. That's a good example. One bad strategic, plan often leads to another and another as you try to like recuperate. And that's where I ended up with like a 6 on that hole or whatever it was. So that was tough. Another one is, as you're assessing that and as you're approaching the green, you want to not only work on avoiding that short side, but work on staying below the hole. And this is where I think it becomes smart. And we've talked about this a little bit before in some of our green reading episodes. Reading the green can really start well before you even reach the green. Just trying to get an idea of the lay of the green in that area. And this is something you can do. I found from talking to some different, putting coaches that a great way to start reading greens is to actually look at the green from afar and look around the green. Some of us get this tunnel vision and we look for just like the line our putt's going to go on and we look for breaks there. But the reality is, if you widen out that view, zoom out a little bit, look at the green as a whole and look at the land around it. Remember, golf courses are designed for the water to run off. Nobody would want a big puddle on a green. So you can start to look at and get an idea of which way things are pitched and sloped by looking at some of the features around the green as well. So this is where, if you take a look at that, you can start to get the idea, is the green pitched towards me, away from me, whatever it may be. And if you can kind of alter your strategy, so that you stay below that hole, what you're going to do is you're going to leave yourself with an uphill putt. And as we all know, you can get a lot more aggressive with an uphill putt versus a downhill. I'll take a 6 to 8 foot uphill putt over one of those tricky 3-4 foot downhill sliders, those slippery ones.
Any day of the week.
Any day of the week. Because I know I can aim 6 inches past that hole and give it a chance. But with a downhill putt, I've got to just kind of take a little bit off of it and just kind of hope it trickles there and doesn't just keep going. Mm-hmm. So that's another strategy. If you can start to just think that way, right? Instead of always just thinking, what's my distance, and just taking dead aim at that pin and firing at it. If you could just start to think and look at where's the short side? Where's the short side? We've talked about before, like almost being like a quarterback in football. And before every shot, you look over the defense. Like, what are the defense? What's the course's defense against me right now? Mm-hmm. And that's where you kind of avoid the riskiest things. And that's where you can make a little bit of a smarter play by being a little less risky with your shots. And risky shots are going after the short side or leaving that putt, where you have that ball where you're going to have to putt downhill. So if you can just make those little changes, you'd be surprised how much easier it makes the next shot.
Absolutely. And to stay below the whole thing, I mean, it doesn't take a golf pro to determine that, this part of the green is on a slope, uphill, downhill. I mean, you could see it. I mean, I also encourage people to just watch your playing partners. I mean, sometimes we get lost in our phone when we're waiting for our shot or whatever the case may be. Watch them around the green because they're effectively going to give you reads. So you can understand what the read is going to be. I mean, from that point, Frank, honestly, I tried to implement this. Stay below the hole, stay below. I remember I went out one round and I just said, I'm going to work on my short game today and I'm going to try to keep everything below the hole. Believe it or not, this was one of the rounds where I'm looking at my shot scope. I averaged 1.5 putts per hole on this round that I shot 81, which was my best round ever in my life. It was this summer.
Wow.
And I went out there with that mentality, try to keep the ball below the hole, and look at the putting. I missed a lot of those uphill putts, but I was leaving them like 2 inches, and I was just that knock in for the second putt, which is a tap in.
Yeah.
And I remember that day because I remember leaving that day talking to the guys in the parking lot, and I was like, you know what? I just had a lot of uphill putts today, and I made a lot of them. So stay below the hole. This thing does wonders. I mean, for me at least.
1.5 putts per hole is solid. I'll take that any day.
Yeah, that was an epic round.
And it just shows you didn't change anything with your putting that day.
Nope.
All you did was approach it with a slightly different strategy of how you approach shot. So again, it shows the importance of that strategy in your short game. So that's a killer example. Love that. Let's talk about the other thing that just nips us, all the time, right? We talk about it. We've done a whole episode on it, but no matter what, it still happens on occasion. Hopefully less and less, but decelerating.
Yeah. I got to figure out how to stop this completely.
It comes so much from, not having that commitment in the shot.
That's it. Yep. That is it.
And the tip we're talking about here is you got to find a way to keep that club moving. And everybody knows we've all had that feeling when something happens where you're just unsure of the lie, the club that's in your hand, whatever it may be. And you set up for a chip shot, pitch shot, something like that. And then all of a sudden that club just decelerates in your hand and you end up coming up well short. And it's going to be, of course, it's going to be very hard to reach the target anytime you decelerate the club, but you got to focus on commitment and keeping that club moving through impact. I think a lot of times we get worried about, sculling it, hitting it too hard. Oftentimes when you're playing a really challenging course and maybe there's a tough bunker or a water on the other side of the hole of the green or something like that, and you're really worried about going long. In that case, what I would say is if you're really, really worried about going long, maybe go with a little bit more lofted wedge, a little bit something like that, and then still just committing to it. But it all comes down to committing to it. But, and I know, like I said, we talked about like 80-20 strategy versus execution. I understand this has a physical aspect to it. We're talking about keeping the club moving, but there's a huge mental game component to this. And I think if you focus on that more than anything, because we all know, we know how to swing the club, right? So what's causing us to decelerate? It's a mental thing. And often what it does is just takes that belief in the shot. Believe in the shot that you've made. And we talked about strategy and execution. I think when this happens, it's when you're unsure of your strategy. So during the execution phase, in your mind, you somehow switch back to strategy and second guess yourself. We talked about using your pre-shot routine as a way to switch your mind from strategy to execution. You should be standing behind that ball or whatever it is, somewhere in your pre-shot routine and thinking, what's my strategy here? How do I want to attack this? And come up with that plan. But once you've got that plan, don't second guess yourself. Lock it in, get up to the ball and execute. Because if during that execution, all of a sudden you start second guessing yourself, deceleration is one of the biggest things that happens in the short game. So you got to work on developing your confidence. We've done an entire episode on this. We're going to keep touching on confidence, but a good way to do this is practice. You'll find that your confidence will just kind of come naturally, with feel and things like that. The more and more you do it, you become more familiar with the shots. You trust it more. You trust the distance, but it's why it's so important to practice your short game.
Let me tell you, Frank, my biggest, deceleration shot is the 20 to 30 yard tight fairway chip shot. And you're like you said, I don't trust it. I remember when I was getting fitted for my wedges, Kevin Sprecher at his short game area. I know I was making him cringe because I was chunking a lot and I was decelerating. And he's like, "Why are you not finishing your wedge through your swing? You're not finishing it. Finish it out. And I started to then get the ball up in the air, lifting it and getting that 25, 30 yard and even getting a little spin. I was hitting it correctly.
Yeah.
So I was not trusting it because I feel like if I take that normal swing that I would take in a propped up rough, so to speak, a light little, chip shot through, if I do that on the fairway, I'm just going to decelerate through it. And I just get nervous that I'm going to scull it. I'm not going to pick it cleanly and things like that. So, that's my deceleration. What would it be for you, bunker?
Oftentimes, if I'm on a bunker short, like similar type of thing where I've got something behind the green that I'm worried about going over.
Got it.
And where I decelerate is one bad thing that I do, but the other thing I do, that's when I often end up sculling it and it coming off hot across the green into whatever the hazard is, because again, sculling it often comes from kind of picking up a little bit too soon, because I'll immediately want to see where this ball is going.
Right.
But the good thing that you pointed out there, which is so true, is that you've done kind of the hard work in that you've identified where the issue is. Like, it's 20 to 30 yard shots from tight lies. So I'm knowing that, exactly what to practice. And it's a matter of just getting out there and doing it. Just finding some sort of area, facility, whatever that has a similar situation where you can get on a tight lie and work on that shot. And as you saw, like even when we were in it wasn't even a lesson. That was just a fitting, but just hitting a couple balls and having him tell you that. And all of a sudden you were hitting them well.
Right.
So it shows that you could do it. And then if you do that a lot, if you start to hit them well a lot, all of a sudden you become more confident. Confidence leads to less second guessing, less deceleration. And then all of a sudden you can move on to the next area where you need to improve.
Right. Exactly.
Check that one off, right?
Check it
and
off.
Move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. All right. So speaking of having confidence in the club, I think another big part of that is making sure you've got the right gear. And I think having the right clubs, will be a huge confidence booster. It's like a shot in the arm for confidence. And I think that's been a big thing for me too, since the changes we made this year to the bag, which by the way, we're going to be doing a what's in the bag segment coming up very soon. We're going to do a full video because we know there's been a lot of changes. We changed out the entire set. Both of us did. And, a lot of you have been asking, both in the comments on YouTube as well as, DMs on Instagram and everything like that, what's our setup? So we're going to run through the whole thing, but just making sure that I had the right wedges, that I was gapped correctly. And then I had a wedge for pretty much everything that I needed, immediately gave my short game a real boost. So, if you don't put enough thought into like a lot of guys, what they'll do is, especially when they start out, and I did this, you just know you need a wedge. So, you have your pitching wedge that sometimes comes with the iron set that you purchase, right? And then you fill it in, you throw maybe two more wedges in there, like a 60 because you think everybody needs a 60 and something else, 52, whatever.
Right.
You see a shiny new wedge and it looks great and you buy it, right? Or you win one at an event, or whatever it may be. But there's a lot of strategy that comes to it. And if you do it right, you'll find that you're able to play this game much better because you have more weapons in your arsenal. And you could do in fact, I think we have done entire episodes on this, but I think there's two aspects of it. One is just making sure that as we talk about, gapped correctly. We talk about these being gap wedges, right? So as part of that, it's just making sure that you don't have a huge hole, like a huge gap in your degrees. So for instance, let's say you have a pitching wedge that's 47 or 48. And this is where it's important to look at the statistics, the actual specifications on your clubs, because, you buy a set, it says P on it, pitching wedge, but you don't necessarily know what's the degree. And you can look that up very easily. And once you know, you can kind of adapt to it. And that's a really important takeaway too, because not every pitching wedge is lofted the same.
Right.
We found that when we switched to the AP3s, we needed to do a little bit of a tweaking because they're a little stronger lofted. So let's say you're at a 47, 48 degree, which is pretty average. There you may want a gap wedge at 52, a lob wedge at 58, and then you can even round it off if you want to go 4 wedges like I do with a 60. Some guys go 52, 56, 60. And it really depends. I can't give you a specific formula for everyone because it depends on where your pitching wedge is and things like that. Now, Again, a benefit to tracking your stats and your numbers. We track club usage. And we talked about that, 2-3 episodes ago in the stat segment. I noticed that I was not using my 5-wood almost ever. It was just a waste of space in the bag, really. And what I ended up doing in our fitting is I eliminated it, and it gave me the option of one more wedge. And I use all of my wedges quite often. So having those 4 wedges in the bag gives me a huge number of combinations that I can use from about 130 yards and in.
Right.
You're running 4 wedges as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. See,
Same.
I just find that it just gives me so many options. And another tip that we had, and we talked about this before, we talked about this in the episode where we talked about, full versus half swings and stuff like that. If you can learn to hit 3 yardages very comfortably with each wedge. So let's say it was like a full speed, 3/4, half speed, or it might even be not as dramatic as that. It might be like 190, 80, but you lock in 3 different distances and you get very good at that. And you do that with each wedge. If you've got 4 wedges, that's 12 different distances that you can cover. Right. And there you have you go out there and you find out a lot less give up on that word.
We got it.
Everyone's got it. And then everyone's in a comment, Frank, it's pronounced familiarity.
Yeah, I can't.
Anyway,
I'll be the first one. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, because everyone's got that where they say, oh, I'm terrible at this yardage. And if you find that, you can find different ways to cover it by getting that and then, and setting up a couple different distances. So if you can learn to hit each one a couple different distances, now you've got 12 distances to work with.
It's a solid point. I think about most of the average 18-hole course, we play about 10 par 4s, and our tee boxes are typically 325 to 385, 390 par 4s. So you and I are getting off the tee now roughly the same, like 280, 275, 280, and 285. It's really just those clubs left, those wedges.
Yeah.
So, most of the time on those holes for me, and now probably for you with the new driver, is it's driver 48 degree, driver pitch, driver 56, so, there's no doubt I want to be dialed in with those 4 wedges from those, and just knowing, like you said, I want to know my 25, my 50, my 75, my 100. I think you could be lights out if you have that.
No doubt about it. And I'm just looking at really quickly, I pulled up my usage of my 4 wedges, and it's fairly equally distributed. I would say if there's one that I use the least, it's the 60. But I like that for greenside bunkers. I just haven't had some of the courses I've been playing haven't been as greenside bunker heavy. But, pitching wedge, 6% usage, gap wedge, 5, what I would call like it's got labeled as sand wedge, but that would be my 56 degree, 8% usage. So it's all right in that realm. But yeah, and then the other thing too is another reason why I like to put an emphasis on wedges in the bag more than even a lot of other clubs is because there's also other shots that they can be used for. Driver is driver, right? And it has its importance. We talk about how it sets up the rest of the hole, but let's say for instance, my 56 degree wedge, not only is it my 100-yard shot, but it's my slightly more lofted chip shot club. So don't forget that. I use them all in my chipping arsenal too. If I want to chip it a little bit more loft and stop the ball quicker, I'll go with a little bit more lofted. If I want to chip it and run it a little bit more bump and run, I might hit my 48 degree. So again, I just feel like you get the right wedges in your bag and a little bit of magic happens and all of a sudden you feel a lot more comfortable with many, many shots. Where I feel like the game is really played, which is 120
absolutely right.
and in.
You're absolutely right. That's the focus this offseason, 120 in.
That's it.
For me.
So look, last point here is nothing happens overnight. It all takes time. It all takes practice. We talk about confidence comes with practice. But I think if I could drive one point home, it's to continue to say, work on that short game. I think it's one of those things like the mental game. We all know it's important, but we don't really put the time and effort into it. But I think it's kind of like the lowest hanging fruit sometimes. If you just work on that for a while, all of a sudden you start to see, reap the benefits pretty quickly because with practice comes confidence. And as you're able to, play this game better from that distance, you'll start to enjoy it more and you'll start to see it reflected in the score 100%. So I would say get out there and just make it a commitment for, the next season or so that you're going to work on that short game and see what happens from it.
Can we try that word one more time? Familiarity?
Familiar. I'm going to make a t-shirt that just does with all the pronunciations.
Yeah. No, but dude, you're spot on. Practice. You got the putt out mat. I have the putt out mat. That's a huge off-season tool for me. And the chippo's now out in full force in the basement.
Yeah.
I was chipping all night. I was on dad duty tonight with my wife out. So the girls were playing with the dollhouse and I was just chipping, those, I bought a bag of those wiffle ball golf balls, 20 of them, and I'm just chipping them all night. So I'm trying to keep the feel in the off-season already.
There you go. I mean, it's amazing. Some of the most important parts of your game, it can be some of the least expensive training aids. I mean, you could go out in your backyard with a solo cup,
Right.
and put it out there and just chip towards it, or a hula hoop and just try to get it in there. I got somewhere along the line, it's in my garage now. I've got one of those just chipping nets and just chip into it.
That's all you need, man.
That's it. And just working on that and working on that feel and that distance, and you'll find you decelerate a lot less and whatever, but work on strategy and strategy and execution, but just putting a little bit more thought into it, because I think when we kick ourselves the most, it's often not that we didn't make a good swing. It's that we did something stupid that was avoidable.
Exactly.
Made a stupid decision. It's like, I should not have gone after that flag where it was. I should have played away from the short side towards the middle of the green. And I know I could have made that putt, or at worst two putted, instead you're chasing the ball all over the green.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important one. But anyway, that's everything we have. You can get to the show notes by going to golficity.com/episode 246, or as always in the Golficity app, which is free for Android and iOS. Check that out by going to golficity.com/app. And like I said, we've got the podcast now on YouTube as well. You can leave a comment there if you're watching on YouTube. We try to respond to as many of them as we can. And in the Facebook group as well. So make sure you check that stuff out. We've got more instruction coming up. We're going to do some year-end recaps. We're going to be doing the what's in the bag. We may do that a little bit on the podcast too. We'll see. But if you have questions about any of that, hit us up, because we love, if there's nothing, that's more obvious about us, we certainly love talking golf. So we're happy to chat about it. Well, anyway, we'll see everybody again next week. Thanks for tuning in.